Good evening and welcome to Atwater City Council for September 25th, 2017. If you'll please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by invocation by Chaplain McClung. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father, as we approach your throne tonight, we're so thankful that we can. We thank you for the fact that we've gathered here tonight, Lord, to discuss the affairs of our city. Lord, we ask that you give our mayor and our council members wisdom. We also pray that you have your hand upon them. Lord, everything that's said and done tonight, do that to glorify thy name. Do pray for our police and fire that are out working right now and patrolling. We ask, Lord, you build a hedge around them, get them home safely. We thank you for their service. And Father, we pray that you be with their families as well. And Father, we just thank you for the opportunity we have to come. And Lord, we seek your face tonight. Lord, we need your wisdom as we discuss the affairs of our great city here. For we do ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Roll call, please.
Creighton?
Here.
Raymond?
Here.
Vieira?
Here.
Vineyard?
Present.
Price?
Here.
We have a quorum. Mayor or City Attorney report out from closed session.
Mr. Terpstra, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council and public. The City Council did meet in closed session tonight at 5 p.m. to discuss potential anticipated litigation pertaining to the Public Records Act. Staff provided an update on this matter to the City Council. No reportable action was taken, but staff was given some direction. Thank you.
We have no subsequent need items that have been brought forward to us. We do have, our next item would be approval of agenda as posted or as amended.
Mr. Bramble.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I would request that we remove item number 4, the purchasing ordinance. The purpose of that is so that the staff and the attorney can review the purchasing manual, review it with the Audit and Finance Committee, and bring it back to you so that we make sure that it reflects the policies that you are interested in, and we get the portions that the city's auditor had requested be included in the purchasing manual, included in that manual. So that's the purpose of removing item number 4.
Entertain a motion for...
So moved. Second.
Call for the question.
Raymond?
Yes.
Vieira?
Yes.
Vineyard?
Yes.
Creighton?
Yes.
Price?
Yes.
Motion passes. Ceremonial matters. Freedom from Workplace Bullies Week proclamation.
Are there any representatives, it doesn't indicate in the agenda, are there any members in the audience related to this particular item? Okay. Seeing none, I will read the proclamation as it is written for the freedom from workplace bullies. And it reads as follows: whereas the city has an interest in promoting the social and economic well-being of citizens, employees, and employers, and whereas that well-being depends upon the existence of healthy and productive employees working in a safe and abuse-free work environment, and whereas research has documented the stress-related health consequences for individuals caused by exposure to abusive work environments, and whereas abusive work environments are costly for employers with consequences including reduced productivity, absenteeism, turnover, absenteeism, and injuries, and whereas protection from abusive work environments should apply to every worker and not to be limited to legally protected class status based only on race, color, gender, national origin, age, or disability. Now therefore, I, James E. Price, Mayor of the City of Atwater, do hereby proclaim October 15 through 21, 2017 as Freedom from Workplace Bullies Week. And I have so signed and proclaimed the dates indicated.
Comments from the public. At this time, any person may comment on any item which is not on the agenda. Please state your name and address for the record. Action will not be taken on an item that is not on the agenda. If it requires action, it will be referred to staff and/or placed on a future agenda. To comment on an item that is on the agenda, please wait until the item is read for consideration. Please limit comments to a maximum of 5 minutes.
Are there any members of the audience wishing to address the City Council at this time? Please step forward. Please come to the podium, ma'am. State your name for the record.
My name is Virginia Jones.
Welcome.
This is my first time here, and so I'm going to just let you lead me. I know I've got 5 minutes, so anybody keeping a watch, let me know. Oh, there it is. Okay.
Go ahead.
The reason I'm here is because I'm an advocate for children, animals, and elderly people. Right now, what I'm really an advocate for are the children at the elementary schools here in Atwater. I've been observing the elementary schools on and off because I've got grandchildren and children that went to school here. And quite recently, I've become fully aware of what's going on at Thomas Alida. It's a danger zone as far as I'm concerned, and I can tell based on the fact that the parking situation for parents waiting to pick up their children and waiting to drop off their children is horrendous. Staff there that are attending the after-school release and the before-school acceptance are not trained to be traffic enforcers. That's a job that needs to be given to them once they're trained from the police officers or someone who does know how to lead with traffic attendants. We have parents that disobey the rules of parking in red zones. If a fire truck had to come into Thomas Alida School the other day, they would have had a difficult time. Number one, you've got close to 40-plus cars that are parked in the parking area where the school staff park, and people coming in during the day are coming to either take care of business or otherwise. Then you've got people that come an hour to an hour and 15 minutes ahead of time before school lets out, so they can be first in line. The yellow zone is for pickup and taking off, and not for 1 hour parking for people to pick up their children. There are no zones on the main street that show that this is a place where children can safely cross the street. So children are either crossing the street on their own, parents are running across with them, or in the one area down at the beginning of the entrance into the parking area, there is stationed a teacher who does get out on the sidewalk and lets kids go across, but she's also covering the driving area. And I, being that I'm not going to allow children to possibly get hurt, I've been going out when the teachers haven't been present to go and taking care of crossing. So am I done? Oh no, I've got 2 minutes. Okay. So my concern is that these are the people of the future. Atwater was built back in way who knows when. I've been here off and on since '65. And one of the problems is that the town hasn't grown with them. And the schools haven't been upgraded as quickly as I believe they should have. And if the schools can't be updated, they should definitely do something to make it safer to deliver our children and pick up our children without the potential of somebody getting hurt. When you've got parents that are parking in red zones, they're disregarding the yellow zones, they're crossing catty corner, and cars are constantly moving in one direction, there's the potential. We had a teacher there that was injured. There was an incident on Friday on my way to Thomas Alida at Mitchell. There was a student that was injured. So, and Mitchell's a horrendous place too to pick up and drop off. So I would ask that the police department, I went and saw someone at the police department today, And I asked if we could have a traffic officer come over and spend some time when it's convenient and he's not busy on this, he or she is not busy on the street, to look and see what goes on, especially at pickup time. And I have one lady that she insists quite adamantly that she's in a zone and nobody can do anything about it, and she doesn't care, and she's going to stay there. Well, I can't do anything about it except report it, so I did try to call the police department, but they were busy with the kid over at Mitchell. As far as what's going on across the street, the community doesn't want people parking in their driveways, which I can understand. There's got to be a better system that allows the people to get there early to pick up their kids without injuring or doing something that might injure our children, and at the same time not create a traffic. I don't know if any of you have gone down Hall Street, but I would advise the council to go down and look sometime at 3 o'clock and see what's going on. The entrance to the school, the traffic goes all the way out and down, and people are sometimes double parking. So you've been there? You're shaking your head, so yes, you know. And so I'm here as an advocate for the children. I'm going to be talking with the district, the elementary district person in charge, and seeing what can possibly be done. I, for one, want to start off first with getting it safe for the kids. They're our future. We're on our way out. You know, we've got to make sure that they're around to keep Atwater going. So,
Okay.
I'm finished.
Thank you very, very much. Chief Joseph, you've made note of that, I'm sure. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the council? Yes, ma'am. Step to the podium and state your name for the record.
My name is Kathy Wood, and I live at 1628 Valley Street. And I'm here this evening to speak about codes for city streets and front yards. And I have 3 areas of concern. My first concern is the increasing number of rarely driven vehicles parked on city streets. The present code apparently states that a vehicle must be moved a certain distance in a certain time frame to be in compliance. This, however, leaves the vehicle on the street. I say don't move the vehicle, remove the vehicle. My second concern is the city code, which allows house trailers, fifth wheels, etc., to be parked in front yards if they are on a cement pad. City neighborhoods are becoming parking lots for people's recreational possessions. My third concern is about junk being stored on driveways and cement pads. And by junk, I mean old trucks with the beds full of junk, old boats and other things that I don't even know what they are, just parked on driveways, collecting dirt and rust. In conclusion, I want to live in a city that is pleasant, friendly, and safe. Viewing dirty vehicles with webs and leaves accumulating under them, front yards turned into parking lots, and junk left on driveways and in front yards is not pleasant to me, nor do I think it creates a friendly environment. Safety can be impacted by the visual obstruction that parked cars and recreational stuff parked in front yards presents. The street sweeper is less effective in street cleaning with cars permanently parked. Property values can be affected by the appearance of cluttered neighborhoods. I have been in communication with Chief Joseph regarding code enforcement. On August 24th, I went out in my local area with a code enforcement officer and with Jane Schmidt. I showed them situations I was concerned about, and they explained the codes. Of 6 situations I remember discussing, which they agreed were code violations, 5 situations remain unchanged. I believe city codes must be strengthened to remove abandoned vehicles on streets, front yard parking lots, and general clutter from our neighborhoods. Existing codes need to be swiftly enforced. I hope you agree, as I do, that codes and code enforcement need to be addressed in a new way. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the council?
Danny Hernandez. I live on Canal. Addressing the issue that First Lady that came up here made. The issue with Olita is very simple. You build a pedestrian bridge over Bellevue from the school going down into Fifth Street so that the kids can cross on that bridge. You see them all over the place, not in this city, but in other cities that you might visit. That's the one thing. And I think that'll resolve the issue having to do with kids walking the crosswalk on Bellevue and holding up traffic and everything else. I think the PD can do the job of giving people citations, for red zones and yellow zones and people making U-turns in the middle of the intersection. What the heck? The other thing is this. Over on Eileen Colburn at Mitchell, where it intersects with the street that I can't recall right now. I already looked at this. It's in Councilman Vineyard's area, right down the street, where it crosses, where you make the left turn at the end of the street, okay? That has only enough room for 2 cars to cross into that neighborhood down, going into Olive, okay? Now, here's the problem. I went to the school, Eileen Colburn, because of the PD having to go down there and pursue people that they're either looking for or the people that are in the process of apprehending. They've had to close the gates to the back of the school where the students used to come into the school grounds. The school decided, we're going to close these gates so these people can't come in, and we'll keep them out while the police are looking around for these individuals. All right? Now, they have to resort to crossing in between those 2 lanes, that only enable 2 cars to go through there. And when these kids are going down that street, on that section that's about a good 60 feet long, cars are coming. These kids are jumping, trying to get against the cyclone fence or over the street railing. All right? Now, sooner or later, somebody's going to get hurt. This was brought to my attention the last time I ran for city council. And at this point, nothing's been done about it. Now, I think, somebody's going to get hurt there sooner or later going to school from Eileen Colburn. All right? And the thing is, I went down there and surveyed that area, and there's plenty of room to put a sidewalk there with a protective barrier to allow those kids to walk to school, by virtue that the school has locked up all those gates in the back of the school. Now, like I said, sooner or later somebody's going to get hurt, and then somebody's going to be saying, well, nobody ever did nothing about it. But these are easy fixes. And I would say both of them, for both schools, they're easy fixes. I don't think it takes a hell of a lot to do that. So I would ask, that you look into this, because sooner or later, I hate to see some young man, some young lady get run over at Eileen Colburn, trying to get to the school. And that's not only the kids from that school. Those are also kids that go into Mitchell. They come up through there to go to school. They walk. All right? That's all I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. Anyone else wishing to address the council?
Good evening, Mayor, Councilman, Councilwoman, community, citizens. Frank Johnson, Modesto, 608 13th Street. A year ago, July 1st, 2016, I first raised the issue of the lack of diversity here. I met with the mayor, Price. I met with the city manager and police chief, Frank Petro. I was assured then that this issue would be addressed and the city would embark upon a serious change. Nothing's happened. I even brought up district elections, and it was tabled, discussed, but now there is some action. The situation with the lack of diversity is a huge problem, such as you identified tonight, and I commend the city at looking at bullying within the workplace. That's a serious issue. It should be something looked at every day, not a week. Since Chief Joseph has taken office, the department has, my numbers may be wrong by 1 or 2, but 26 sworn officers. 0 African American. Zero Asian. 0 female. 0 gay or lesbian. Zero transgender. And only 3 Hispanics, with a city that's 53% Hispanic. That's not representation of what needs to take place here. Nothing's being done. Diversity training. I understand that that's a possibility that something is going to take place. Leaders lead by example. Communities look at you, and if they don't see themselves, they don't want anything to do with it. They feel disenfranchised. And it's come to my office over and over and over. And if something isn't done, an agency or a group is sitting back right now ready to take legal action against this city. This lack of diversity is getting ready to become legal. Everyone should have a right to do what's right. So I'm here. I've said what I've had to say. It's been a year. I hope change is going to take place soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the council? Mr. Hernandez, you've had your moment. I'll give you 1 minute.
Thank you. It'll be real quick.
Okay.
I totally disagree with what this gentleman has said. I think Chief Joseph done a hell of a job. When he puts in for recruits to take place, in this city, I don't think he goes by saying, I need women, I need gays, I need whatever the heck it is. You qualify for the position. Plain and simple. When you pass the test, you become an officer. If you go to the academy, you get an education. I don't know what these people are doing, as far as this wishing, to be hired into a position, that they are not qualified for. That's not what you do generally when you hire somebody for a job. So I don't know where all this business is coming from. that this gentleman has mentioned, but I think it's a disgrace. You need to do things here the way they're supposed to be done, get qualified people to be in the department, because up until now, those that he has in the department, they're doing one hell of a job. And I'm going to tell you something else. Every one of those officers has a right to leave this city and go to get more money someplace else. And they do that. So let's not kid ourselves about this business. And as far as somebody coming here to sue this city over this issue, it's a bunch of bull. Don't give in to these threats. I'm asking you. You cannot give in to this kind of stuff.
Okay.
This is all political. Never mind.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez. I appreciate your comments. Anyone else wishing to address the council?
Yeah, my name's Richard Johnson. I live at 1675 Drakely Avenue. And I was wondering to ask the mayor and the city council if any of you can imagine being arrested just walking into your own city hall or city building just to discuss a bill, or taking 2 steps into there. Can you imagine being arrested right away and not saying a word, and having somebody come out yelling at you and then an officer arresting you right away? Can you imagine that? Or have any of you ever been arrested? Can anybody answer that? Nobody here has been arrested? Okay. Just think about that for a second. Walking into your own city hall and them knowing you're coming up there to speak about your water pipe, just to discuss a bill, to dispute a bill. They knowing you're coming, and Tina Lamison, ex-Chief Petro's assistant, coming out yelling at me saying, "You need to freaking leave now." That's her exact word. I didn't say a word. I took 2 steps, maybe 3 steps into that front lobby here, and Officer Walker arrested me. She said, and they said on the report it was for being loud and cursing. I never said one curse word. You can look at the videos, and that's just one of many times I was arrested for no cause, for no reason at all. I've raised 4 great kids. Between here and Modesto, I've raised 4 great kids, a Marine, a daughter that's in the Navy, one daughter owns her own business, and my oldest daughter works in Sacramento researching bills. I should not have been able to come to a city that I liked being here, and my wife and I have been through nothing but hell since I've lived here. Things have got to change. I don't know if it's the way, if you guys don't train your officers, or if you guys are retaliating against us, but this city has got to change. I've been arrested October 6th coming down here to City Hall, and I was arrested for no cause at all, no reason at all. And then November 30th, I was arrested. My wife and I was in our home. We was watching TV in the afternoon. Here comes a bunch of Atwater police officers and a couple public works employees. Woke us up. We came to the door and they told us, "We're taking your signs, protest signs, legal right to protest signs, protesting what the city and water company's done to us. We have a right to protest." They came there, they told us they're taking our signs. I told them, no, we have a right to have those signs. And I asked them for a warrant. My wife and I asked them for a warrant. They said, we don't need an effing warrant. Right there tells you they need more training than what they have been getting. This city has got to have more training. It has to change. We walked out there, and I was telling them, no, you're not taking my signs. Of course I'm going to tell them that. That's my right. It's my property. I own that property, and I know my rights. First Amendment rights. They violated my rights then. Then at the hearing, the state hearing attorney ruled in our favor that the city and police department violated our First Amendment rights by taking our signs, and the city was trying to silence us. Okay. We've gone without water ever since then, and prior to that, we've gone without water. And I'm telling you, this has to change. It's got to stop. And I know I can't be the first citizen or residents in this city to be arrested for no cause. We are allowed freedom of speech. I've never in my life assaulted an officer. That day, November 30th, I was arrested for assault and battery on a public works employee. That was a lie. 5 officers lied on reports. I went to court 14 times. 14 times. Can you imagine that? Defending myself. Me and my wife. We have been through hell. The day of trial, the city's witness, their own witness, told the truth and said, Mr. Johnson never touched me. And that was the truth, and I commend the guy. I commend the city works guy. He's an honest person. He believes in God, and he did the right thing. This city was trying to put me in prison, and thank God for the employee that told the truth. And I knew he was going to do, just like other officers, they ain't going to go down for somebody, on their commander or somebody that told them to do something. For me to be arrested and my wife to be denied medical attention on November 30th was wrong. That was wrong.
Okay. Mr. Johnson, your time has expired. Thank you for your
Thank you.
comments. Anyone else wishing to address the council at this time?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members, community members, and guests. My name is Gabriel Santos. I reside at 3391 Shoreline Drive, Atwater, California, in the Schaefer Lakes East area. I've got a couple concerns regarding some recent city activity regarding a memorial bench that was placed in the Manuel Barrows Park. Mr. Price, you're well aware of it, as are other city council members, as I brought it to your attention, and I'm bringing it to the attention of the city council now in a formal setting. My concern is that although this is no disrespect to the honored and the deceased, I do not personally know Mr. Barrows. However, I do have some concerns with the way the park bench was recently placed, because I do reside next to that park, and it's completely different than every other bench that's in that park. I'm concerned with, was the process followed regarding this bench being placed in the park? The color is completely different than the 8 other benches that are placed in the park. It faces the street. Every other bench in the park faces the park and the playground. There's been nothing but problems since that bench has been placed there. For example, the first weekend it was in there, there was individuals partying in and around that bench well into the evening hours, smoking marijuana. We're having to close our windows at night because of the different activity that's taking place in the park. My 6-year-old son has been approached by transients recently in the park. Last night at 6 p.m., I located 2 individuals engaged in sexual activity in the park in broad daylight. Atwater PD did respond. Thank you very much for taking appropriate action. This morning, after midnight, my wife encountered a transient sleeping across the street from our house in the park. The city has an ordinance that the park is closed at 10 o'clock. I'd appreciate if that ordinance was followed and enforced. It'd be greatly appreciated. The reason I have an issue with this park bench is the city committed 4 city employees to install this park bench. Took 3.5 days. I would like to know who paid for the bench, who paid for the salary of those 3 employees, and there are 4 employees for 3.5 days. I'd like to know who paid for the concrete of that bench, and I'd like to know if there was plans for that bench, if the plans were followed, those plans were approved, were those plans ADA compliant in accordance with 2017 standards, because it appears that this bench was just randomly placed, and there's a lot of other items that the city employees could have been addressing at that time. And again, I don't want to discredit the deceased or the family members of the deceased or the employees of the city of Atwater, because we do have a lot of hardworking employees. However, we committed 4 employees to installing a concrete bench that faces the wrong direction, it's the wrong color, and if Mr. Barrows was a city employee that took care of parks and recs, why is the bench facing the street? There's no barricades to protect the bench. It looks like a bus stop. There's not a bus stop there. And quite frankly, the community members, when you look at that bench, it stands out like a bowl in a china cabinet. It doesn't meet the decor of the park or anything else that's taken place in the park. Over the last 30 days, here's some of the items that we've experienced in the park that I'm asking your assistance for. Broken sprinklers in and throughout the park. I reported this on 2 different occasions, and these are just examples of things that city employees could have been paying attention to instead of pouring concrete and dealing with a park bench that, in my opinion, would be a lower priority in accordance to some of these other items. There's an island, a city island, where there's a tower right at the intersection of Channel and Schaefer Road. The weeds are overgrown. It poses a significant hazard to traffic, especially as students are being dropped off at school and parents come around. They take that intersection. You have to creep out into the number 1 lane to get out on the Schaefer Road. Significant hazard. I reported that on 2 different occasions. Still hasn't been taken care of. Okay, prime example. What is a priority here? An intersection to protect the safety of the community members, or installing a city memorial bench in a park and committing 4 city employees for 3.5 days. The garbage cans in the park never get dumped. They're locked. I live in the area. I gladly pull those out to the street on Tuesdays as a community member to get those dumped. They're locked to the fence. No one unlocks them to get them emptied. We've been having soccer there nearly every weekend. The garbages are full. Why is that a problem? Because all the garbage blows into our residents. We talked about there's a lot of activity in the after hours. I have 10 seconds, so I'll use every single bit of it.
Go ahead.
The after hours activity that's taken place, I'd greatly appreciate, Chief Joseph, if your officers could come through the area and enforce that after 10 o'clock. And the reason for that is it's becoming an issue. The transients, as I mentioned, we found, my neighbors and I have found transients over the last 30 days on 2 different occasions on our property. Law enforcement's been called, and they did come out this morning at midnight. No one here would appreciate that in your front yard. I've witnessed individuals urinating in my front yard after hours. When they get approached, they become very hostile. No one here would appreciate that. Neither do I. I've witnessed individuals to Mel's early morning hours as I leave for work, checking cars, casing vehicles throughout the city of Atwater, Schaefer Lakes East area, and on the Schaefer Lakes West side. That was reported to law enforcement. I never heard the end result of that. But again, there's been an increase in activity, and I'd really appreciate if the Schaefer Lakes East area, Councilman Vieira, our neighborhood is getting thrashed, and I'd appreciate if we focus a little more attention, the trees, the parks. We could honor Mr. Barros by maintaining the Manuel Barros Park, not putting a bench that faces the street. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Anyone else wishing to address the council at this time? Okay, seeing none, move on to the next agenda item.
Consent calendar. Background information has been provided on all matters listed under the consent calendar. These items are considered to be routine. All items under the consent calendar are normally approved by one motion. If discussion is requested on any item, that item will be removed from the consent calendar for separate action. And we do have an amendment on the consent calendar, and that is under number 2, minutes. Regular meeting, August 28th through 2017 needs to be removed. Those have actually already been approved.
Okay. All right, are there any items on the consent calendar that any council member would like to remove for separate consideration? Are there any items on the consent calendar that any member of the audience would like to remove for separate consideration? Okay. Hearing none, entertain a motion for the remainder of the consent calendar minus number 4, and with the proper amendment to item number 2. Entertain a motion. Mr. Raymond.
Motion to approve the consent calendar as amended.
Second.
Call for the question?
Vineyard,
Yes.
Creighton,
Yes.
Raymond,
Yes.
Vieira,
Yes.
Price.
Yes.
Motion passes. Informational only, no action required. Our item is the Rosary Rally to pray for the nation at Ralston Park on October 14th, 2017, from 12 p.m. to 3 p.m.
Mr. Mayor and Council, this is on your agenda for information on an item or an activity that will occur in the park. It's my understanding that this is an item that would go, which has gone to the Community Development Resources Committee, or Commission, and it's now in front of you, and we have a representative that would like to give you that information.
If you would please state your name for the record.
Ramona Giesbrecht.
Very well. Thank you for your comments.
Thank you. And, well, I just came back because I wanted to see if I had been approved that we could have the rosary on the date of October the 14th at 12, starting at 12 noon.
Mr. Mayor and Council, actually, she got the approval of the CDRC. There is no action that you need to take because she's neither closing down the park, nor is she closing a street that would require additional activity or additional actions by the city. So basically, her event can go on without a formal approval of this body. We bring it to them primarily for their information so that they know what's going on in their own parks.
Okay. So then it's approved that I can do the rosary?
Your approval has come by way of the CDRC committee already. This is an informational item only for us. If you would like to give us a brief description of the event, you're welcome to do so.
Okay. Well, it would be, what I'm doing is that I'm going to put the notice at the church's bulletin, so people will know what we're going to be doing. And also, I would like to, and also on Facebook, that people will come and pray because we're praying for our nation. We're praying for ourselves, and that's something that they sent me that if I would be able to do. And the reason I felt that it would be good to do it at the park is that because I think it would be comfortable for people, to be able to be there, and I know that I know that I'm responsible for that, and I'm going to do everything that I can that people will know that it's just a prayer. That's all that it is. It's not doing anything more, that I would, would hurt the park or would hurt anyone really, So that's what I really would like, So, and I'm working on that. As soon as I find out that I can do it, I am going to start working on things that I can do, properly. Also have people help me, that are good and loving people, that they will be there with me also.
Okay, very good. Well, your approval has been brought forward, and your event is ready to go.
Thank you.
So thank you so
I
much.
wanted to tell you this is how it's going to be, That's why I brought this,
Okay.
Because that way people can see, and as I said, I also did some copies that I'm going to be of papers, that I'm passing out to people, that I want them to feel good, and I want them to know that we're here to pray for our nation. That's what we're here for, and for ourselves.
Very good. Mr. Raymond?
Yeah, I attended this event the year before last. It was a great event. Is Fernanda Madero still involved in it?
Who?
Fernanda Maderos?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, they put it on a
This
couple
is
years ago.
something
It's a
that
really
they
good
sent
event.
me a letter, because, see, what happened was they called me one day, this group, for Our Lady of Fatima.
Yes.
And they told me that if I like praying the rosary, and I said, yes, and then they sent me all this information, then they sent me all this stuff, and they told me when they would like for us to do it, because this isn't the only thing that's happening here, it's happening everywhere.
Right.
There's been a lot of other places, and I thought, I'm going to do the best that I can, and I'm going to trust in the Lord that He'll help me, that I can do the right thing.
That's great. I'm just glad to see it continuing now. So it was a good event if everyone wants to go. Even if you're not Catholic, it's still
Right.
good to attend. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, the rosary is praying to, with our Holy Mother, which is Our Lady of Fatima. Praying the rosary is bringing all of us together, you know, and you know, when you pray the rosary, it brings you together, you know, and makes you feel good, and brings you, also helps you to know about God, you know, what He's doing for you, and how beautiful it is, you know, that we come together for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have some papers, copies of papers that I've made that they told me to pass to the people to explain, you know, those to you. I've been doing some of those, so I have a lot of things that I have to put together.
Well, I praise you for having this event. I don't think there's a person anywhere that wouldn't agree that a little bit of divine intervention these days, and how, you know, we might be able to settle some of the issues of our nation wouldn't be helpful. So thank you very much for your time.
So then
Thank you very much for your event.
Now I know I can plan, you know.
You're ready to go. Thank you so much.
May God bless you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Next item, please.
Funding and budget matters. Treasurer's report from the month of August 2017.
Mr. Hiller.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilman, or council persons. Before you is the Treasury report for August 31st.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Yes, second.
Mr. Vineyard?
I do have a question. I want to make clear that the public is aware of this because we had a financial audit meeting today. And it shows that our ending balance in the general fund went up from 1.7 to almost a little over 3 million. And the reason was we had a CalPERS payment, correct? That we weren't aware it was coming?
2.2.
2.2. And also, we're actually getting some money back, correct, from that?
Yeah, actually, the 2.2 million will be offset with $687,000 worth of interdepartmental charges for those departments that are not part of the general fund and have personnel within it. So that will be changed. And then we also had the CAL FIRE final payment. So it's basically that's the activities that happened in July and August.
We will be having another finance and audit meeting on October 23rd. If anyone would like to attend, you're more than welcome. It's right here.
And what time will that be?
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock here in the chambers. Okay. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions for Mr. Heller? Okay, call for the question.
Vera?
Yes.
Raymond?
Yes.
Raymond, I'm sorry.
Yes. It was close.
Sorry, I wasn't very,
It's a
wasn't very clear there.
Confused.
Creighton?
Yes.
Vineyard?
Yes.
Price?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next item, public hearings. Waiving the first reading and introducing ordinance number CS 989, amending Chapter 2.10, General Municipal Elections of Title II, Administration and Personnel of the Atwater Municipal Code, to transition from an at-large election system to a district-based system for city council members.
Mr. Mayor and Council, you've held 3 public hearings, and you've had 1 town hall meeting, which you received some comments on regarding the maps and opinions regarding district elections. At this point, it's now time to talk about the maps, and I think the articulation by many of the council people at the town hall meeting regarding avoiding potential litigation were well articulated and well placed. So with that, I'm going to introduce Mr. Johnson, Douglas Johnson, who's our demographer, and we'll talk about the maps, and we need first reading of the ordinance as well as amendment, if there are any amendments of the map, to provide that to him.
Mr. Johnson.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be with you again. I'm actually happy to add to, I'm joined by Shalise Tilton, also of the NDC team. So I won't take a lot of time since at least the council has seen this before, but just to walk through briefly the different options before you and how we got to this point. So this has been a process almost wrapping up of a number of meetings that are set forth in state law. So as was just mentioned, tonight is the last hearing on input on the draft maps and then looking at the ordinance. All three maps have been developed with what are essentially the standard criteria. All three maps comply with the federal requirements for equal population and following the Federal Voting Rights Act and avoiding racial gerrymandering. And then where they differ, to the degree they differ, is slight changes in the communities of interest. And resulting impacts on being compact and contiguous and following visible borders. And then they all are the same on respecting the voters' wishes, and I'm happy to say that all three maps leave the decision on whether a council member deserves re-election up to the voters, instead of dictating the voters one way or another. One thing to keep in mind is that when we're looking at the Federal Voting Rights Act, the main goal is the city has two primary concentrations that are heavily Latino. And the thing to emphasize in this is that we are looking for neighborhoods. We're not picking out individual blocks, but we have two neighborhoods, one on the west side and one on the east side, where Latinos are a majority of the eligible voters. So we want to be sure that none of the plans divide up those two either of those two neighborhoods. It's also worth noting that there's too much population in between them to have one district that combines both of them. So we're really looking at two council districts that will have, and in all three maps, there are two council districts where a majority of the total population will be Latino, and where Latinos will be the largest of the eligible voter group in at least one of them. And all three maps are essentially the same on that criterion. So as you mentioned, they're on the wall. Just to briefly summarize them, looking at the green map, which is on the screen, a lot of what drives the differences in the maps is the configuration of District 2. It obviously changes the most in each map. In green, it's really 2 and 4 are vertical. They divide up the east side of the city in a vertical manner. And then 2 goes over and picks up the Schaefer Lake West neighborhood. And that pushes District 1 to pick up the population a little bit farther south than some of the other maps. And then in order to complete that circle, District 3 comes over across Schaefer Road. So what we're really wrestling with is the equal population requirement is so strict that either we can keep the Schaefer Lake, both sides of Schaefer Road in the north together, or we can have a nice Schaefer Road border in the south, but we can't do both. And that's where we wrestle with which of the maps is the best balance. So next, this is the orange map. You can see the difference here. In the north, we're going right up and down Schaefer Road, which is a nice major road. It's a nice clean border. In order to get that extra population into District 2 that it needs, we're coming across, that's right where Thomas Olieta Elementary School is. So the elementary school is in District 2 in this case. Still fairly compact. You see how 2 and 4 have that bump. What that's following is the census blocks follow the creek really between Stone Creek Drive and Santa Cruz Drive. And we have 2 really big census blocks that run that whole length, which is why in each of these maps there's that configuration between 2 and 4. There's no council member in that neck. There's no gerrymander going on. It's just the way the census blocks are drawn. Oh, and I should say in that map, by going over to Schaefer Road in the north, we have a nice, very compact border for District 1 on the south side where it borders with District 3. And then again, in the yellow map, you see the difference. Again, 2 is picking up the Schaefer Lake West neighborhood. Just this one's really showing a bit of a different approach to the border between 2 and 4. 2 doesn't have to come across Schaefer Road in the south because it's coming across in the north. And then again, we get, unfortunately, there's no way to move 1 down just 1 block and pick up the population. We kind of have to get a couple blocks and intersperse those. So as I mentioned, each of these maps has different trade-offs. We've got the data. We're confident that all 3 of these maps.
Oops. Okay, Chris. Can you get out? All right, good job, Chris.
each of these maps is legal and complies with all the requirements. Now the question is really up to you and the residents, which map best matches your neighborhoods. And we are looking to pick one of the maps this evening. So that's my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions now or after the hearing.
Okay. Are there any questions for Mr. Johnson from the council? Okay. In that case, then, I will open the public hearing to this particular matter. Anyone wishing to address this item may do so. Come to the podium, state your name for the record, and your comments.
Are you going to limit me to another minute? Or is this 5?
No, go ahead, Mr. Hernandez.
Okay. I don't understand how we arrived at this point of making these districts and all this business here. I ran for this city council twice. I didn't win, but that's okay. I got my objective done, the objective that I ran for. Now, every year, when we have an election, there's either 2 people that run for a position on the city council or 3. Why are we going to 4 districts? Or why are we going to districts at all? This is not anything that the city should entertain by a threat from a group of people that all they want to do is divide people. That's all we have here. I think we're perfectly fine, with this city voting as a whole for the candidates that are qualified to run, as opposed to people that live in the canals with dogs, like Merced had. Now, I just don't understand, the lack of backbone, that we cannot, that we cannot oppose these folks, to come in here and try to sue this city when this city ain't got no money. What the hell, if you ain't got no money, what are they going to get? The old street cleaner or what? Baloney. Let's get this stuff right. Get rid of these districting business, all right? And if you're going to have to go districting, just go to 2. Cut the city in half, so that more people can vote for any one position, on the city council, as opposed to you isolating some people that can't vote for another person because that person's already got somebody in that area. I don't understand, that this has gotten out clearly to people, when it comes down to what this entails. I don't think not even the Atwater PD has districts. We can't afford to do it. The officers have to cover the city as a whole, and so the citizens of this city should be able to vote as a whole. And for me, hey, I can tell you right now, I'm going to run again. And if I lose, I lose. But I tell you what, the way it is right now, Mr. Villanueva and I live down the street from each other. So what in the hell are we trying to accomplish here? Let's get rid of this business. Get some backbone and tell these people to go to jump in the lake at Yosemite, all right? Because otherwise, you know what? This business here of having up there these maps with people that live in that blue section, I know who lives there. I just told you earlier what the problems are down there with the Atwater PD chasing people with guns and so forth, and all the stealing and what have you that goes on in that place. I don't see that happening in Schaefer as much as that gentleman came up here and said, but you know what? It's all over the city. It's not just there. You got a lot of people down there in that blue section that can't even vote. I happen to know some of them. And I also happen to know that they're illegal here in this country. So who the hell are we doing this for? It isn't for them. They're going to be fine. It's the citizens of the city that are the ones who are going to pay the price by this limitation of their right to vote whoever they want. And I think that's a violation of the Constitution, to be honest with you. I don't understand, I don't get this business, of somebody coming in here and demanding by suing you that they're gonna do something. All right, you wanna sue us? Go ahead. Let's see how much you get out of this little town. I don't think they're gonna get anything. But let's get some backbone here, get rid of this business here. It's just gonna make it difficult for everybody because you can't vote for qualified people. You're gonna be voting for people that don't even have a clue, except for whatever their agenda is for getting something free. By saying, you know what, I'm gonna run for city council, because you know what, I'm homeless and so forth and so on, I don't even live here. Just like the people in Merced this last election that ran. And you all know it. If you read the paper, you've seen it. And this is what we're gonna get here? I don't know how come. I'm going to run again, but I tell you what, I don't want to win just because I'm Hispanic. What the hell is this? But I don't know if I qualify to have any of your seats. But we're going to find out. But it's wrong. It's wrong to limit the citizens of this city with that insult up there on the wall.
Thank you, Mr. Hernandez.
You
We
bet.
appreciate your comments. Anyone else wishing to address the council to this matter? Okay, seeing none, close the public hearing and bring it back. Mr. Terpstra or Mr. Bramble, would you like to give the capsulated explanation to Mr. Hernandez as to what brought us to this type of thing?
Yeah, in June of this year, and prior to that, from Mr. Johnson, who's not here, Mr. Johnson had requested that the council go to district elections, and then in June of 2017, the city received a demand from a law firm that has been pursuing this issue up and down the state and has been litigating California Voting Rights Act and Federal Voting Rights Act claims against cities in the Central Valley. A number of cities in the Central Valley have gotten the same demand, and while some have tried initial efforts to resist it, those have not been successful in court. And so it's such that it is staff's opinion and our office's opinion that the city council has no real chance and no real option to go any other way but district elections in light of the changes in state law and federal law and as interpreted by the courts. So this is one of those where you have to, as a city council member, say we're supposed to have the ability to legislate on local affairs like elections in any way we see fit. But unfortunately, state law and federal law says that you don't. And so the best advice that we can give at this point is that the council should move forward with district elections, selecting one of the maps that has been prepared by your demographer and your consultant. Again, maybe not a direction you want to take, and maybe not a direction that the majority of the public wants to take. But I don't see another option that is available to the city at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Terpstra. And Mr. Hernandez, this is the first meeting that you have attended where we have addressed this with you here in attendance. I don't know if you had been watching any of these proceedings prior to this on TV, but it is the consensus of the majority of the council here that districting is not something that we favor as well. It's under the threat of litigation that we are doing this. And I understand what you're saying about wanting to fight this. I can only cite the city of Modesto chose to fight. They lost, and it cost them over $1 million in order to try to make a challenge to it. As you so appropriately stated, we don't have that kind of revenue or that kind of discretionary money within the city in order to mount some type of a legal challenge to the districting type of action. We're basically painted into a corner, and it's not a position that I myself feel comfortable with at all, but it is what it is. And in order to fight this, as Mr. Johnson stated at our last council meeting, it would run us somewhere in the neighborhood of $150,000 that we don't have. And so, as I say, we're kind of painted into a corner, and we are where we are now. And I appreciate your comments to this matter. Okay. Mr. Johnson, do you have any other comments that you want to make as to this? Okay. I'm sorry? Yeah. So I guess we're at the juncture right now as to which map to select. For those that are in attendance here that were not at our town hall meeting, if you look at the maps that are on the wall, you'll note that the orange map has a bunch of blue dots scattered all over it. And you'll notice that the yellow map and the green map also have dots on them. These are indicators from those that were in attendance at the town hall as to which map they see as the one that they would favor as far as how the districts would be assigned. So if there's anyone that didn't attend it, that orange map seems to be the one, at least at that meeting, that was favored. So I guess we can, at this juncture, bring it back to the council here. And do you have any comments, questions, suggestions, motions? Mrs. Vieira.
I think that Mr. Hernandez, the majority of the people that were at the last meeting and the majority of the council agrees with what you have to say. And so I think I'm going down kicking and screaming on this as well. But to put our city at risk of possible litigation of anywhere from $150,000 to $500,000 is not a responsible move either. So I would, at this point, just because the majority of who did attend that meeting pick the orange map, I would make a motion that we go ahead and move forward with that.
Second.
No, you do have a second. Let me just make sure we clarify that the motion would be to waive the first reading and introduce the ordinance as directed in the staff report and selecting the orange map.
Correct, yes.
Very good.
Okay. I just, what Councilmember Vieira has stated is exactly 100% factual. We're backed into a corner, and this is the way things happen sometimes in government. We have, mandates that come down. This is basically a mandate, and it is what it is, and I wish it weren't. And I think the general consensus and the comments that we had from the town hall, and when people were basically given the whys, what-fors of the districting, I think the overall opinion was this is not something that they believe that would be in the best interest of the city of Atwater. But last but not least, we are where we are now, and so with that, if there's no other comments from the council or from the public, call for the question.
Creighton?
Yes.
Raymond?
No.
Vineyard?
Yes.
Vieira?
Yes.
Price?
As I've stated, reluctantly, yes.
Motion passes. Next item is city council matters. City council comments.
Mr. Raymond.
Keep it simple tonight. I just want to wish Tammy Fournier happy birthday and ask for prayers. Former Councilman Andy Krotik's brother Bart was recently diagnosed with stage 4 cancer, and so we're just asking for prayers for him and the family tonight. Thanks.
And your Bears won.
And the Bears beat the Steelers.
How did you become a Bears fan? Ms. Vieira.
Oh, just kind of short, touching base. I know that we're voting in the district election, and, in our small city, I hate anything that divides us, but sometimes as a council person, it's almost like being a parent. You're having to pick something that might not be the best, I don't know. It's it's not the best, but it's not the worst. We can't put our city at risk of a lawsuit, and we just can't afford that. So just know that your council struggled desperately with this, and we fought and kicked and made Tom check and check and check and check and check again. And so this is where we're at. But anyway, we did fight hard to avoid it as a council as a whole, and undivided on that.
Mr. Vineyard.
Two things. Fall cleanup is coming October 21st. This program's no longer run by our city. It's actually been handed down to the volunteers. And therein lies, we have a problem. Because we used to be able to use city workers to come. It's on a Saturday. They'd volunteer their time and they'd come or get paid to help us go pick up the items that the senior citizens can't put in their own vehicles and bring the fall cleanup. We're working on that still. But we need volunteers that have pickups or pickups and trailers who might be willing to come from 7 o'clock that morning till 2 p.m., going around the city and picking up items that the seniors don't want anymore, that can be brought in for free. There's no charge to anybody that lives within the city limits. That brings me to the second thing. If you want to volunteer a pickup or something, get hold of me or Mr. Shaw, and we still have to have another meeting. It's going to be out by the corporation yard again. So we're going to get the traffic plan together and everything. Now I lost my train of thought. Anyway, if you want to volunteer, we'd appreciate your help. The second thing is cops and firemen for kids is coming up also. It starts right after Thanksgiving. We're looking for volunteers. I believe it's going to be at Walmart again to come and sit at the table and talk to people about donating money or gifts or both. So the list is short. Right now, a lot of people have dropped out. Either they've left or they just can no longer do it. And we need more volunteers to staff the tables. It's every weekend, every Friday, Saturday, Sunday, for about 8 hours. And you don't have to volunteer for every single day. You can volunteer for one day. You can volunteer for 4 hours. But we do need help in that, so you can also contact me about that as well. Thank you.
Mr. Creighton.
Just to follow up on the gentleman's comment from Schaefer Lakes, the site issue at the intersection and the weed issue, can you have that looked at? That's all.
Okay. Mr. Vineyard took one of my items here, which is the Cops and Fire for Kids. The first Saturday of December is the designated day for the Cops and Fire for Kids. This has been, at least for the last couple of years, a very, very successful program. And for those that aren't familiar with it, it's where we get toys, Christmas gifts for underprivileged children throughout our city. And it's been so successful that we've even gotten to the point where the kids that are receiving these gifts are getting 4 gifts apiece. So this is a big deal. And, for a kid to get something like that on Christmas morning that otherwise wouldn't have anything is a very big deal. And something that I'm glad I'm associated with. The town hall, although there wasn't a whole lot of folks that attended it, I think there was a lot of very good comments that were made, a lot of suggestions. Again, the hot ticket item was on the districting type of voting type of a system that we're going to. And it's going, when it's implemented, it'll start with districts 1 and 2, and then the following year to District 3 and 4, or the following election rather, District 3 and 4. So 2018 and then 2020?
Yeah, but it's 3 and 4 first, I believe.
Oh, 3 and 4 is up first.
Yes,
okay. Well, in any case, it'll be 2 districts and then 2 districts the following election cycle. So it'll be something to get used to. Merced is under that now, and so the people that were in attendance to, get a quick and down and dirty briefing on it, and you can imagine the results of that. So, at the next council meeting, I'd like to bring back for discussion and action, possible action anyway, getting the extension of Measure H on the 2018 ballot. And my thought is with this, to have an extension on this for 25 years. This past Saturday evening, just to kind of give you a flair for what Measure H does, this is all public safety money. This past Saturday evening, I did a ride-along with the police officers again. When 8 o'clock rolls around, they go through a shift change, an overlap shift change. And at that time, there was a little bit of scrambling having to go on because they were out of vehicles. Okay? That to me kind of set it all in perspective. 2 vehicles, one was, it probably was a blown water pump. The other one had front end issues and could not be driven on the streets, especially in a high speed type of an activity. So it boils down to, we've got a lot of things. The vehicles are always a big deal because they're out there running around the clock, and they have maintenance issues, one or another. Secondly, we also have issues still with properly ventilating our computerized recording equipment and other things in there, Chief Joseph? Communication system in whole. When I came in Saturday evening, there was a fan, about a 36-inch wide fan, that was ventilating the one room for the communications recording equipment. And even though, we're enjoying some, better temperatures these days, that room was smoking. I mean, it was hot in there. And this big fan was what they have. We've got to do something about properly ventilating that area in there. We all know, if you've been here for any length of time, we know that, there was a terrarium or whatever back there, years ago. Walls got put up. Everything is in a position right now where it's not getting properly vented, and that equipment is going to be, eventually it's going to go out. So we have to address that issue as well. It's just one of the hardcore things on that. Any case, Measure H is one of those sources of revenue. Half-cent sales tax, it goes only to public safety and related public safety items, and we need to go and extend it. It's going to expire in a couple of years, and there's just no way in the world that we can continue with our public safety at the level that we have right now, or the levels that we would like to have it in the future. So bring it back for discussion and possible action at our next council meeting. And along with that, something that I would like to also bring back possibly at the next council meeting or the one after would be a resolution stating that the city of Atwater is a law and order city. Now, the reason that I say that is because recent events in the state of California, certain legislation that has been passed in Sacramento, and certain propositions that have allowed for things that favor the criminals and their early release and what have you. I know that bringing back a resolution such as that, stating that we are a law and order city, is pretty much symbolic more than anything else. But it states that our city here and our police department and this council believe in the rule of law, and that, in fact, anybody that comes to this city will know that we take those things seriously. And by resolution stating that, although it may be symbolic, it is our belief. And so if we can have a draft of that and come back either at the next council meeting or the
Mayor,
one subsequent to that. Yes,
On
sir.
that, on that resolution, you probably want to state the DOJ section on that when you bring that back.
We'll include all that.
We talked about that earlier when
Yep.
we came back from the league.
So, any case, that's all I have. Is there's any second thoughts or anything, Mr. Vineyard, did you get rid of your senior moment?
Nope, it's still there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, if there are no other comments from the council here, thank you, ladies and gentlemen at home. And oh, by the way, if you're having trouble with the sound at home on the broadcast of this, if you go to your computer and dial it in on YouTube Live, the sound quality there is much better than if you're on the public access channel. So if you want to give that a try. Yes, Mr. Bramley. Ooh, yes. We have a special meeting that we need to adjourn to. This will be
Wednesday, the 27th,
Wednesday,
at 5 p.m.
Wednesday, the 27th, 5 p.m.
And it will be just so I can help you, it
Yes.
will be a closed session, agenda discussion for staff to provide an update to the council on the city manager recruitment process.
Thank you for reminding me,
Yeah.
Mr. Bramley. Okay, with that in mind, this meeting is adjourned.